Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So we're back with the patch 3.4a patch notes review. Alright, so this one isn't really a long patch, but there are definitely some impactful changes, and we're just gonna get through them. I don't think this is gonna take too long, but let's just get right on with it. Alright, so first up, Ranked Season 7 is going to begin on the 13th of October. And the reward is gonna be Glorious Draven, of course, as an ADC player. I'm pretty excited about that because I got a new skin for an ADC that I can actually play. But Draven, not too many people actually play Draven, even amongst ADC players. So it's a pretty interesting choice that they put Draven as a skin. But yeah, all right. So next up we have the what's it called, legendary rank. So legendary rank, they are going to finally launch the champion score requirement, but the good thing is that when you are forced to play off role, you will be able to play a lot of the champions that you don't have enough mastery points on, because obviously, for example, if I'm an ADC player and I have high mastery on all the ADC champions, but I don't play jungle very much or at all, obviously I won't really be having mastery on jungle champions, so they won't force you to play, for example, like here they gave an example, they won't force you to play MF in the jungle. They will be able to expand the pool of the champions you're allowed. So I really like how the system is very dynamic and flexible, such that it doesn't force you to play only champions you have, like for example above mastery 5, and basically, obviously, if you don't play that role, you probably won't have any champion above that mastery 5, so you're gonna be forced to play like an ADC in the jungle, or a jungle in mid, or something like that. But yeah, so they've also updated the opening hours for the legendary rank. So yeah, I think you guys can see this one for yourself. And we also have a Power Spike Party event. Now, I think this is supposed to be the 2-year anniversary event, and it looks like they're giving out quite a number of free gifts. No idea what those are yet, but definitely excited for it. And now we can talk about the champion changes. So Ahri is finally getting a nerf. Now, I thought that Ahri has been really strong since her mini rework, and to me, she's been one of the best mid lane champions. However, definitely there are some people who can't really play Ahri well. I mean, you do have to hit your charms and find picks, and just in general, you have a lot of dashes, a lot of mobility, so you don't want to be dashing to the middle of enemy team. So I assume that people took time to play Ahri, and now her win rate finally has gone up, which is why her passive heal on takedown is going down by 10 at all levels. This does, of course, scale with level, and also going down by 10% AP. Now, this was an issue because sometimes when Ahri was low health and she got a takedown, the amount of health restored from the takedown is actually pretty absurd. And it basically becomes that she can go from like almost dead to back to full health after getting like about 3 takedowns or so. And it was pretty ridiculous. So I do think that nerfing the heal on takedown does make sense. However, of course, this is very specific to only when she has takedown, so it doesn't really nerf her in the laning phase. It doesn't really nerf her pick potential. It doesn't really nerf her damage or anything like that. So it's a relatively minor nerf, and Ahri should still be really good, but it's definitely a step in the correct direction. Now, that what they're backtracking on is actually Camille. Now, Camille, we know, has received like too many nerfs to count, honestly, and she's finally actually getting some buffs. She's getting 5 extra health per level, which overall is not the most significant stat. Overall, it gives her a 50 something extra health at max level, which I guess is about 1 auto attack from a normal champion not building crit. And her tactical sweep base damage is actually going up by actually 10 at first rank and by 5 at max rank. So it's going up by a lot at the first rank, but it's not going up by so much at higher ranks. And generally, Camille's max like Q first and E second, so having 1 point wonder in W, so having more damage on W on first rank definitely makes her stronger. Now, I'm not quite sure why they're suddenly buffing Camille. I'm gonna assume it's because after all the nerfs she's gotten, her win rate has gone down, and now they think that she's weak. So I don't know about this one, because they obviously were going in one direction, nerfing Camille non-stop, and now they're suddenly buffing Camille can't really decide whether they can't really decide whether she is too strong or too weak. But apparently, I guess after all the nerfs, she became too weak, so now she's got to get a bit of buffs. Alright, so now Echo getting a nerf to his jungling ability. So his passive, they already nerfed it once from 130, I think it's 130% to 120%. Now it's going from 120% to 110%. The 3-hit passive, like I said, this 3-hit passive on jungle monsters is not too important because most of the time you proc it only once before you clear the camp, so this is not gonna hurt too much. But what is gonna hurt is the time winder. The Q damage to monsters going down by 10% as well, because you do spam this on jungle monsters quite a lot in your clear. But overall, I still think Echo Jungle will be viable, just that it's gonna be a little bit, you're gonna have a little bit of a slower clear, but I still think it's gonna be viable, and Echo as a champion is still really strong as well. Now Evelyn AP ratio on her Q has gone down by 5% because apparently Evelyn has been really strong in high ranks. I'm not sure about that because I honestly never see Evelyn in my games when I'm in Master, so I don't know about that. Maybe it's on a different server than mine, but yeah, it shouldn't matter too much. 5% AP ratio is not too bad. But Gwen now, getting a buff. So Gwen's health going up by 50, a really strange number considering how they like 40s and 80s. The 1000 cuts, which is her passive, monster damage is going down from 5 plus 5% AP to 4 plus 4% AP. So basically, they're making her jungle clear a little bit worse. Not too bad though. And whereas they're buffing her Q, so her initial snip base damage is going up by 2 at all ranks, and the final snip damage is going up by 10 at all ranks. So the main logic of that is that her laning performance hasn't been good. Now, I think that honestly, I think Gwen is actually really strong and really in a good spot. I don't think she needed buffs at all. But the whole issue with Gwen is that everybody's trying to pick Gwen in ranked, and everybody's playing Gwen when they're not really experienced and don't really know how to play her well. What they don't realize is that Gwen is someone who is really weak in the early game, and only really strong when you get like 2 items, being like Nashor's Tooth and Riftmaker. Only when you get 2 items are you actually strong. But people try to like 1v1 like a Darius, at like level 4, something like that. You're definitely gonna lose because you aren't strong in the early game. So the reason why she's looking so weak is because many people don't know how to play her, and I think that she's gonna get nerfed sooner or later because with these buffs, the people who can actually play her are gonna use her to destroy even more people. Alright, so Karma, pretty much the best support, no questions asked, getting some nerfs at long last. We do have her W cooldown going up by 2 seconds. Not the worst nerf in the world, but her Inspire non-mantra movement speed going down from 45% to 30% is actually really significant because movement speed, of course, is really important, and having to commit your passive to use your Inspire, the mantra empowered Inspire, sometimes you do want to do that. Sometimes you want to use it on Q. Sometimes you want to use it in W. Like Karma is really flexible, which is another reason why she's really good. But the movement speed going down by 15% on the non-empowered version is pretty huge nerf. So we're gonna have to see how well Karma does, but I suspect she's still gonna be doing really fine. Just a little bit of utility chopped off. Kassadin, finally getting even more nerfs. So here we have Nether Blade cooldown going up by 2 seconds. That's his W, and his Rift Walk, the ultimate damage, is actually finally going down. So the damage that you're going to do, the base damage and the AP ratio stays the same, but it's not only going to scale 1.5% mana instead of 2% mana. And considering Kassadin builds a lot of mana, this is actually going to be quite a lot of damage chopped off if my calculations are correct. So we're going to see if this nerf is enough to actually make Kassadin a lot weaker, but in my opinion, it's not enough because in my opinion, the main reason why Kassadin is so strong is because laning phase is way too short, and he really is not under a lot of threat in laning phase if he takes like fleet footwork and just sustains and just waits until level 5, and then he has a blink and he can really easily escape ganks, etc. So I still think Kassadin is going to be really strong. Next up, Nautilus. His passive root duration is going up by 0.25 seconds based on level, pretty much going up by 0.25 seconds at pretty much all ranks basically. 0.25 seconds buff is what made Veigar from like B tier to suddenly S plus tier / S tier. So it seems like the CC duration of like a quarter of a second doesn't really matter, but it really does. So this might actually make Nautilus good. And his cooldown on his hook is going down by 1 second at all ranks. Now Pike, in my opinion, is a pretty strong support. However, they've seen that he's not really performing in a lot of games. So what they have done is they've decreased the mana cost on his Q, so he can use this a lot more and a lot more often. Of course, this is the main tool he uses to catch people off. And the damage to non-champions is going down by 25%. Because apparently, not apparently, I've seen this in my games as well. I still see a lot of like Pike mid and Pike top. Not a lot, but I still see some, which I don't really know why, because his wave clear is horrible. And he really now should only be playing support, because now that his E and his Q, which is his two wave clear tools, have been nerfed in terms of minion damage, it does of course make sense. And also jungle, by the way, is damage to non-champions. So yeah, lastly, his Phantom Undertow, which is his E, the cooldown is going down by a relatively significant margin, especially when you talk about, in the early rank, so it's going down by like 1.5 seconds at base rank, and you max this second, so for like a good, like 10 minutes into the game, you're only going to have 1 point in this. Also, having it up more often is going to be really helpful. I think Pike is already in a pretty alright spot. This is going to make him even better. Now, Yasuo, apparently they did have some kind of cooldown reduction formula kind of glitch, which decreases overall damage output. So basically, they're compensating by increasing his base stats, base attack damage by 4, and his last breath damage by 50 at all ranks. So this shouldn't make too much of a difference to Yasuo, considering it's a compensation buff. It's not actually buffing him, so I guess this basically should mean that his damage should still be about the same, so he should still be in about the same spot. Alright, next up we got item changes. We have Bami's Cinder. The damage to minions and monsters going down from 25% to 15%. This is basically the Sunfire Aegis nerf from last patch, but they forgot to move it onto the Bami Cinder as well. So, ironically enough, the tier 2 item of Bami Cinder did more damage than the actual full completed item of Sunfire Aegis, which is pretty funny. Alright, so basically with this support item nerf, we have the death of the double support item bot lane, because if the quest owner is near an ally that also has a support quest item, the player cannot consume charges. So this is one of the like 5 different ways they could have done the nerf to remove the double support item, and yep, this does of course make sense. So basically, you couldn't take support item in any role aside from ADC and support anyways. Now, of course, if both people take it, they'll disable each other, so it doesn't make sense anymore. So basically, now only supports can take support items, which is the way it was always meant to be. Alright, next up, they actually nerfed the support items themselves as well, because they've been giving supports way too much gold, which I agree with, which is one of the reasons why the double support item strategy was a thing in the first place. So what they're doing is, for Relic Shield, instead of getting 135% on killing blow, you're only going to get 120%. And the minion gold count towards quest production is going down slightly, so this means you evolve your item a little bit more slowly. And Spectral Sickle, instead of getting 30 per stack, you get 25% now. These are kind of marginal nerfs, but I think that they are a step in the correct direction, because I think support items are pretty overtuned at the moment. So yeah, Riftmaker AP going up by 10 to make it a better first item. I think this will indeed make it a better first item, because most people are building it like second item, like Gwen and Akali. So maybe it's going to be a good first item now. Slurry Charge Blade. Attack speed going up by 10% and ability haste going up by 5. Now this is because, of course, ever since they removed the extra 25% crit on its passive, pretty much all the carries that were meant to take it are taking other items instead. Now, with the exception of maybe like Lucian is the only one who actually still builds Slurry Charge Blade. But yeah, this does, of course, this does make sense to buff the item, because the item is pretty weak now. Probably is going to be an indirect buff to Lucian, but I don't know if anybody else is actually still going to build this. Now, Lethal Tempo, basically attack speed per stack is going up by 1% for both melee and ranged at all ranks, because they felt that this rune wasn't too strong. But the one that actually matters is the max stack bonus is going up from 30 to 40. So that's going to give you a lot more attack speed. Now, the reason why I think most people don't take Lethal Tempo is because a lot of people still like the AD and the Omni-Vamp from Conqueror. So a lot of people still just go for that anyway, or the Kraken Slayer damage. So most people don't really like Lethal Tempo for some reason. I personally like Lethal Tempo, but I know a lot of people don't. So I don't know if this buff will actually change that, but 10% extra attack speed at max rank is nothing to scoff at. So I think that's going to be really good. And next up, system changes. Basically, Gluttonous Greed's Maw and Lee Sin's second ability is now going to be Omni Vamp instead of just physical and magic vamp. So it works on true damage now as well. Accessories, obviously these are the ranked accessories. This is probably the Power Spike Party bauble, and probably Power Spike Party icon, and this is probably the new rank season trail. Alright, so that is pretty much it, except the last part where they fixed a bug in the game where basically sometimes if you had a decreasing shield, you wouldn't, when someone killed you when you had the decreasing shield, it wouldn't count as a kill, which was a pretty major bug that I personally never experienced, but I did know of its existence. But anyways, that should be more or less fixed now. So that's pretty much it for this patch. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.